The story begins with Santiago Pope Garcia, our personal military consultant, on a mission to track down some henchmen of drug lord Gabriel Martin Lara deep in Colombia, alongside the local police. The plan? Extract valuable information about the big boss. But, as every good action movie has taught us, nothing ever goes as planned. As soon as they get close to the criminals' hideout, they are met with a blazing shootout. Santiago takes cover and decides to handle the problem in the most subtle way possible, by launching a grenade at the building. After the explosion, the police capture the survivors and begin an interrogation intense enough to make any villain sweat. After a few threats, one of them confesses that Lara is hiding in the jungle. But the cops don't buy the story and, well, they eliminate the informants without a second thought. Then, they start rounding up the rest of the gang. But a clever woman named Giovanna takes advantage of the chaos and escapes. Santiago and the police chase after her, but she easily outruns them. No one expected her to have such stamina. After the frustrating pursuit, Santiago takes a taxi to an apartment where, surprise, Giovanna is waiting. And no, she didn't escape by accident. In fact, she's his informant and wants to make a deal. In exchange for help getting her brother out of prison, she offers Lara on a silver platter, along with the location of his mountain of cash. But there's a bonus. The police Santiago thought were his allies are actually in Lara's pocket. Yep, the guy had been running in circles like a dog chasing its tail. With this bombshell revelation, he decides to put together a team to take down the drug lord. First, he recruits William Ironhead Miller, a former Delta Force captain, who only agrees to join if Tom Redfly Davies is on board. Tom, an ex-Delta operator and now a broke real estate agent, hesitates, but the promise of millions of dollars is more tempting than a plate of Texas ribs. Next, Santiago brings in the Morales brothers, Francisco, Catfish, a veteran pilot, and Ben, an MMA fighter. With the team assembled, he presents a plan so well-crafted that even Danny Ocean would be proud. The mission starts with them entering the country using fake passports as energy consultants, a classic FBI trick from the 80s. Once there, they infiltrate the jungle and observe Lara's mansion. They discover that every Sunday, the family goes to church, leaving the drug lord alone with only a few guards. Santiago then asks Giovanna to record footage of the house and confirm where the money is hidden. She does the job flawlessly and escapes unharmed. That night, while drinking to forget they're about to commit a highly illegal crime, Santiago drops the big twist. They're not sharing anything with the agency. The plan is to keep all the money for themselves. The team, not exactly in a position to turn down millions of dollars, agrees without hesitation. There's just one problem. They need a second vehicle to transport all that cash. Giovanna, always sharp, takes care of that. On D-Day, they arrive at the mansion under the cover of rain, waiting for the family to leave for church. As soon as the guards depart, they move in like ninjas and neutralize the remaining security. But there's a small issue: no sign of Lara or the money. Just as they're about to leave empty-handed, Santiago has a brilliant idea. He smells fresh paint and remembers what Giovanna said about the house being the safe itself. Without thinking twice, he punches the wall. And suddenly, dollar bills start raining down. The team gets excited and starts tearing down all the walls, uncovering way more cash than expected. With time running out, they stuff their bags and prepare to leave. But Santiago decides to set the house on fire as a message. And that's when things get even crazier. Amidst the destruction, a secret door opens, and who steps out? None other than Lara himself. Panicked, he starts shooting wildly, hitting William. But Santiago reacts quickly and sends Lara to the afterlife. Luckily, William survives with some makeshift bandages. The group then eliminates the last guards, strikes a match, and turns the mansion into a first-class barbecue. On their way out, they notice Lara's family returning from church. What do? They just drive past slowly. Now, I wouldn't have left the plan in the hands of a guy who thinks of burning down a house before checking if the owner is still inside. But on the other hand, I would have taken the money and run, because we all know that staying longer than necessary never ends well. A curious detail is that this film almost had Channing Tatum and Tom Hardy in the cast. Imagine if they had been in it. I bet the movie would have been even more incredible. But moving on with the story, our team of highly trained ex-military operatives, who clearly suck at logistics, made it to the extraction point, where a suspicious-looking helicopter appeared. Santiago finally reunited with Giovanna and her brother to deliver the promised money. The plan seemed perfect, until they weighed the cash. 6,000 pounds. That's a cool $250 million. The bad news? The helicopter didn't have the power of a Black Hawk and couldn't take off with that much weight. But leaving money behind? Never. So they decided to risk it. They also gave Giovanna and her brother a ride to Peru. Upon arrival, Santiago, ever the gentleman with questionable tactics, gave Giovanna passports, $3 million, and tickets to Sydney. She, blinking like an emergency light, asked how she could contact him, but he, channeling his best tough guy energy, said she couldn't. The team then moved on to their next mission, surviving a trek across the Andes with more money than the budget of some small cities. As expected, the weight became an issue, the helicopter engine failed, and the only solution was to dump some of the bags of money to avoid an explosive end. Even so, they had to make an emergency landing on a farm. What happens when you crash with a fortune in a poor village? The locals show up armed. Santiago tried to defuse the situation, but Tom, clearly not grasping the concept of not killing everyone, shot some villagers. To make up for the mess, Santiago bribed the village chief with a slice of the treasure, ensuring safe passage with mules to carry the remaining cash. But a young boy, whose father was killed by Tom, stared at them with a look that said, "You're going to regret this," and no one suspected it was a bad omen. As they crossed increasingly treacherous terrain, the mules started falling, sending bags of money tumbling down the mountainside. Eventually, they had to ditch the animals and climb the hard way, dragging the cash with ropes. In the freezing cold, Ben burned some of the money to stay warm. Small problem. Fires attract attention. The next morning, gunshots. Tom, always efficient, found the shooter, just an angry teenager. The real problem was behind him. The boy who lost his father had been tracking them for days. One well-placed shot to the head and Tom was gone. The team broke down in tears, and William, in the middle of mourning, decided it was a great time to argue with his brother about the fire. Santiago, however, shut it down, reminding them the teen had likely been following them for days. So they kept moving, carrying Tom's body and a portion of the money. They finally reached the boat, but there was a catch. They were 5 days late. Ben went ahead to check if the boat was still there and, luckily, returned with good news. But, of course, there was a problem. A group of armed teenagers was hunting them in town. Santiago suggested a plan: eliminate everyone. The group, however, remembered they weren't in a video game and rejected the idea. In a moment of self-reflection, Santiago finally admitted that maybe, just maybe, he had underestimated the complexity of robbing a cartel. They abandoned most of the money and escaped. Each took about $1.6 million, but in a surprising act of humanity, they signed it all over to Tom's family. The movie ends with the friends parting ways and Santiago receiving a note with coordinates to the money they left behind. If he's smart, this could be his second chance. Be sure to check out the other videos on the channel. I'm sure you'll love them. See you there, and take care.